How much longer till textbooks and a proper syllabus reach our children? The apex court verdict is awaited as the state calls it an injustice. A. Raja now says he didn't mean to implicate the Prime Minister in the 2G scam, but Dr. Manmohan Singh chose not to set up a group of ministers. Raja also says he showed the Attorney General the press note. Vahanvati hits back saying Raja's charges are rubbish. Vigilance officials search residences of senior police officers and bureaucrats in the city after complaints of land misuse. The RBI hikes rates once again, this time by 0.5%. Get ready to pay more for car and home loans. Tiny tot Arif is still missing, last seen with a beggar in Oteri. The cops gather leads into the kidnap case. Police zero in on a suspect after a DMDK worker was hacked to death last afternoon in front of his son. Tamil Nadu's government exchange website needs a reboot as internet cafes charge higher rates for a browsing. Veteran actor Ravi Chandran is no more and put to rest. The Chief Minister, who once shared screen space with him, pays her respects. And take a cue from this mama-to-be, snooker champ Vidya Pillai claims her 6th national title before she moves on to represent Karnataka next. Good evening and welcome to the headlines now on NDTV Hindu, the primetime bulletin that gives you a whiff of the day's top stories that's been making headlines, news that matters to you, and views that spark off a debate right at your dinner table. Tonight is a packed bulletin, so without much ado, the national headlines before getting you all of that in detail. Still defiant and refusing to quit, Karnataka's Chief Minister says the Prime Minister should quit first, as many in his cabinet are corrupt. The government allows this regime to stay indefinitely after the nun working with leprosy patients was asked to leave after 30 years. And Pakistan's new Foreign Minister Hina Rabbani is in the capital ahead of the Foreign Ministers' meeting. The Foreign Secretaries held discussions today. Our top story, a day after naming him in court in connection with the 2G scam, the former Telecom Minister A. Raja today told the court that he didn't mean to implicate the Prime Minister and then Finance Minister P. Chidambaram. But he added that the Prime Minister chose not to set up a group of ministers to look into how the licenses were being granted. He said he was being accused of overriding the group of ministers, but while he was concerned about a conflict of interest in referring it to the group of ministers, the Prime Minister could have done so. But Raja said the Prime Minister didn't. It was Dr. Singh's judgment and he could have formulated a group of ministers if he wanted to. Now, A. Raja continued to whip up a storm today when he took over his own defense from his lawyer for some time, taking on the Attorney General Vahanvati. The accused minister attacked Vahanvati on the controversial press note on the first-come, first-served rule for spectrum allocation that he was allegedly amended to include a cut-off date after the Solicitor General saw it. Raja said, and I quote, "I amended it that the DOT Secretary Siddharth Behura showed him my note." The Attorney General called Raja's allegations rubbish then, and he said the press note he saw was unamended and it was amended later by Raja. Moving on, the uniform syllabus still hangs in the balance as the Supreme Court verdict is expected on the implementation, and it is looking like it's going to be taking much longer. The argument against the state government's decision has been in progress. The senior counsel for the government argued at the apex court, challenging the implementation of a syllabus which did not follow the national curriculum framework of 2005. He also argued that the High Court did not consider the unanimous decision of the 9-member panel committee. As defense, the government had decided to postpone the implementation of syllabus indefinitely because the syllabus was substandard, else it would prove as injustice to the students. So as of now, the verdict is likely only in the next 2 to 3 days. Moving on, senior police officers and bureaucrats in the city were today raided by officials of the DVAC in charge of tackling corruption. These raids were carried out in connection with sale and misappropriation of plots allotted under the government discretionary quota. The raids included the home of Jafar Saith, who was the intelligence chief when the DMK was in power. Raids were also conducted at 8 other places, including Karunanidhi's former secretary's son's house. This following allegations that Jafar Saith had suppressed information to get the Government Housing Board plot allotted for him, and that he was defrauded and that he did go on to defraud the government by further developing property, entering into an agreement with the construction company for pecuniary gains. Jaffer is currently serving as Special Officer of the Lankan refugee camp at Mandapam. The other officers include Jay Shankar, Balraj Johnson, Kasturi Raj, Najimuddin, Mr. Bernas, Durga Shankar and the Landmark Constructions even. The raids were carried out by the Directorate of Vigilance and Anti-Corruption. It's been a no-show for Kalanidhi Maran, who has been summoned by the city police today in connection to cases against the COO of Sun Pictures, Hansraj Saxena. In fact, the Sun Network chairman and managing director has been set to appear before them for questioning on cheating cases filed by film distributors T.S. Selvaraj and Shanmugavel of Salem. Earlier, Kalanidhi Maran had in fact missed a summons as he was out of the city. But top police sources have told us that a second summon will be issued to Mr. Maran if he fails to turn up before the investigating officers. In fresh developments in the Koturpuram murder case that took place last afternoon, police say that they have identified the suspects. 5 special police teams have launched a manhunt to nab the accused persons. 36-year-old DMDK functionary was hacked to death by a gang in broad daylight in Koturpuram yesterday. The man, who lived in the nearby slum clearance board housing complex, was returning home with his son back from school on his bike when a gang arrived in an auto rickshaw and bikes with deadly weapons and unveiled an attack. Police suspect previous enmity to be the cause of the crime. Our crime correspondent Salim has more details.
Following the interrogations with the suspect, the police say that they have formed 5 special teams and that they have identified the accused persons as far as this case is concerned. The police say that they suspect previous enmity to be the cause of crime, and there is no political rivalry between the 2 persons as far as the police is concerned. They say that investigation is going on the right track and that they will be in a position to nab the accused persons very soon. They have sent their special teams to various districts of the state.
Meanwhile, there's no news of the tiny tot missing Arif. It has only made the wait for his parents all the more grave to handle. NDTV Hindu tracks this story. Well, not to be seen over the past 2 weeks, Arif's home in Chindadripet is only praying and hoping for a miraculous rescue of their little baby boy. But in what could lead the police to some vital clues, a neighbor's son has spotted the boy on the shoulder of a beggar in Oteri, the area from which the child went missing. Police are still investigating this case. Now get ready to pay more for car and houses as RBI hikes rates of the key rates. In fact, the Reserve Bank of India today raised the repo rates, the short-term lending rates by 0.5% to 8%. The hike in the repo rate is more than consensus expectations of a 0.25%. That is a hike, but this is the 11th time since March 2010 that the RBI has raised interest rates, making it the longest rate hike cycle in nearly a decade. The RBI has been increasing interest rates in a bid to contain rising inflation, welcoming the Reserve Bank's decision to hike key rates by a hefty 50 basis points. The Finance Minister, Pranab Mukherjee, said it will help bring down inflation to a comfortable level of 6 to 7% by the year end. But this hike means lending rates of banks is set to increase and consumers will have higher loan rates and home loans as well as EMIs, which will get pricier once the banks set their base rate.
These are to maintain an interest rate environment that moderates inflation and anchors inflation expectations, to manage the risk of growth falling significantly below trend, and finally, to manage liquidity to ensure that monetary transmission remains effective without exerting undue stress on the financial system.
You're watching headlines now on NDTV Hindu. Up ahead, Yedi may not be ready to go just yet, but is the BJP ready? With the party's image at stake, the heat is clearly on.